Welcome to SVG-TV News for Thursday, January 4th, 2024. I am Rochelle Batiste with the details. 4 people were killed today after a small engine aircraft with registration number N4023B crashed off the coast of Bequia in the Northern Grenadines. According to a news release from the Royal St. Vincent and the Grenadines Police Force, the aircraft owned and piloted by Robert Sash of Bequia crashed into the sea 1 nautical mile west of Petit Nevis sometime after midday today. The police say the aircraft went airborne from the J.F. Mitchell Airport in Paget Farm about 12:11 p.m. for St. Lucia as its final destination, and that moments after taking off, the aircraft experienced difficulties and plummeted into the ocean. Fishermen and divers from Paget Farm went to the scene of the incident in their boats to render assistance. The SVG Coast Guard was informed and quickly traveled to Paget Farm, Bequia, to lead in the rescue efforts. The bodies of the 4 on board the aircraft were recovered by Coast Guard personnel and were later pronounced deceased by a medical practitioner. The bodies were transported to St. Vincent on board the Coast Guard vessel and were taken to the Kingston mortuary, where a post-mortem examinations are expected to be carried out to ascertain the cause of death. The RSVG Police Force expresses condolences to all who are negatively affected by the tragic incident and said it will update the public as more information is gathered as investigation into the matter continues. And in a telephone interview with SVG-TV News, area representative and leader of the opposition, Dr. Godwin Friday, said the incident is a terrible one to start the new year.
Because this is something that nobody expected and nobody wished to see. There are 4 lives lost, 2 of them children, and their father. It's heartbreaking for anyone, and anyone, you know, as family and children. It's difficult to quite process because it's so sudden and so terrible. And they caught me on vacation, and you know, it has ended in tragedy. My heartfelt condolences, my sympathy. Really with the families, because it would be very difficult for them to be coping. Bob Sachs, the pilot, had known for a very long time, and he's a member of the community here. A lot of people will be shocked and sad that his sudden passing.
Dr. Friday commended the divers of Paget Farm, Bequia, and the SVG Coast Guard for their quick response in getting the bodies from the aircraft wreckage.
My understanding is that the Coast Guard has taken the bodies to St. Vincent, and they will do what is the normal process is necessary to handle the bodies in these circumstances. The recovery was really assisted by the divers in Paget Farm. They did a tremendous job in assisting the Coast Guard in recovery of the bodies. They have to be commended for that.
SVG-TV News will bring you more on this tragic incident as further information comes to hand. Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves on radio yesterday announced that he has made a request of the Chief Surveyor over the holiday period to have evaluation done for Baliceaux with a view for the government to purchase if there is an agreement, or if there is no agreement, to invoke the law in relation to acquisition.
Of course, we'll have to pay fair and reasonable compensation. We can't agree, we'll have to go to a tribunal. Under the law, I spoke to the lawyer for those who have acknowledged that they have title to the land. Naturally, that title would have to be interrogated to make sure that everything is in order, as if government is buying anything now or acquiring anything, any land. Of course, you know, almost every year around March 14th, some agency of some kind will publish some astronomical number in relation to the value of Baliceaux. Like they want to raise people's spiel, you know. Get people hit up and vex. Really unnecessarily about the price of this. Because we have made it plain that, remember at that time when last year I said, listen, if anybody from overseas, if a non-Vincentian wants to buy it, the first thing that they have to do is to get an alien landholding license, and that will not be easily granted because this is a historical site. This is a place for a memorial. And if you're having a development which is of value, but which has a certain amount of land set aside for the memorial, and it is clear that there are really no takers, and the owners either don't have the inclination or don't have the resources to develop, because to develop that is going to cost a huge amount of money. There is only one little piece of a beach. The place don't have any infrastructure, nothing at all. And they're joining the piece of the island next door, the small one, Batawia. You know, I said that we will never give an alien landholding. Well, we'll never allow development on Batawia because it is a bird sanctuary, and that has to be kept as a natural habitat. So, in practical terms, anybody who owns that, you really don't own anything, because there's not going to be any development on it there. Eh?
The Prime Minister said he is hoping that they can have movement on the purchase or acquisition of Baliceaux before March 14th this year.
And in the case of Baliceaux, there can only be particular types of development which have a sensitivity towards the historic, cultural, memorial dimensions, because that is where 2,500 of our ancestors, Garifuna, where they were 5,000 or thereabouts were put after the British defeated the Garifuna Kalinago resistance in 1795 and ambushed and killed His Right Excellent Joseph Chateaubriand, paramount chief of the Garifuna people and our national hero. So I'm hoping we can get that kind of a matter sorted out in relation to the purchase or acquisition before March 14 this year, which is the anniversary of the death.
The Prime Minister said they are also looking to purchase lands for housing settlements in a number of areas, including Chester Cottage. He said they have also been searching for pieces of land for a process of resettlement of persons who are at Pole Yard who will have to move for the construction of the hospital.
You're not going to get one parcel of land for all the persons who are at Pole Yard. And I just want to say, I want to make it plain. We had made it clear that there was a cut-off point. So anybody who went to Pole Yard and squat after a particular time, which we had made the announcement, don't come and say you're there, because you can't go and game the system. I'm not saying we wouldn't help, but it's a different process and extent of helping if you decide that you're going to try and game the system in that way. But they're long-standing residents at Pole Yard whom we'll have to resettle. So I just want to mention those things as a practical matter.
In light of a photograph which has been circulating on social media showing Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Trade, Kiesel Peters, Venezuela Ambassador to SVG, and another person holding a map of Venezuela, which includes the disputed Essequibo region, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves has written a letter to the presidents of Venezuela and Guyana on the matter. It was noted that the photo was shot in December 2022 at an event commemorating the life and work of the great liberator Simon Bolivar at Villa in SVG on the grounds of the residence of the Charge d'Affaires of Venezuela to SVG. In his letter dated today, Thursday, January 4th, 2024, Prime Minister Gonsalves said he does not recall ever seeing the photograph before its current circulation. PM Gonsalves said he was informed that photographs were being taken in front of flags of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Venezuela and a bus of Bolivar, and that while the photos were being taken, he advised that someone to the Venezuelan embassy place the papaya mache, the depiction of the said map, in front of them, and that he did not look at what the depiction was, assuming that it was about Simon Bolivar. Prime Minister Gonzalez told the leaders of Venezuela and Guyana in his letter to them that it is unfortunate that this innocent inadvertence on his part has been used by some to drum up unnecessarily antipathy of one kind or another, noting that he understands all the emotions attendant to the controversial issue, and from time to time there will be flare-ups. PM Gonzalez said as leaders they must maintain a patience and a calm, knowing that sun brightens stone even as the river burns. Reminding the leaders of the joint Agal Declaration, in which dialogue and peace between Guyana and Venezuela was agreed upon, the Prime Minister said all parties, especially both leaders, must apply and build upon. Noting that he had spoken to the Guyana leader and vice president on the matter, Prime Minister Gonzalez ended his letter by saying that it is his hope that it is laid to rest where it ought to properly reside among the assorted ghosts from the past, which ought never to rule us from the grave. The Prime Minister also noted that he is profoundly encouraged by the letter dated January 2nd, 2024, from the President of Guyana to the President of Venezuela in respect of arranging the first meeting of the Joint Commission in Brasilia, Brazil, to advance further the Agal Declaration and its purpose. PM Gonzalez, who is the current pro tempore chairman of the Community of Latin America and Caribbean States, CELAC, which played a key role in brokering the talks and subsequent declaration between the leaders of Venezuela and Guyana here in SVG on December 14th, has been identified in the Agal Declaration to continue to be in the position of the interlocutor even after his chairmanship of CELAC expires. In other local news now, we hear that with the issue of pension reform expected to be high on the government's agenda this year, the major trade unions and the Police Welfare Association have come together to make recommendations on what they would like to see be included among the proposed reforms to come. At a news conference today, Industrial Relations Officer of the SVG Teachers Union, Andrew John, said a committee was put together to investigate the financial status of the National Insurance Service, the NIS, to look at the proposals being put forward for pension reform, to determine the impact the reform measures will have on pensioners and current workers, sharing information with their members and the general public through the hosting of educational programs, including town hall meetings. He said the committee was also charged with making recommendations to the government on pension reform, which the unions believe will soften any blow on workers given the current economic climate. John pointed out that though it was difficult at first in getting the relevant information needed to assess the financial status of the NIS, they received the required documents, and after a great level of perusal and consultations, they were able to come up with the relevant recommendations. Elaborating on the recommendations made by the Police Welfare Association, the Teachers Union, and the Public Service Union, President of the Public Service Union, the PSU, Errol Boucher, said on November 31st, 2023, they submitted a set of recommendations to the government for consideration relating to the reform of the NIS and the public service pension systems. Boucher said one of the most important recommendations made is the management of the NIS, noting that from their findings, they have discovered there is a lot more that can be done with respect to how the NIS is being managed.
We would have found an amount of over $100 million that is spent or used on other activities that really has nothing to do with what the contributors are concerned with. And that is extremely, extremely important. So the management of the NIS fund itself is extremely important. According to the ILO, any social security fund should really be managed in a tripartite arrangement. That is government, a representation from the workers, and the business. The businesses make a contribution on behalf of the workers to the NIS, and the workers themselves make that contribution. So one of the most important recommendations for us is that the management must be strengthened. And what we are saying is within the framework of that tripartite arrangement, there must be representation, bona fide, honest, transparent representation from government, from the trade unions, and from the businesses. And we are saying that the Public Service Union, the Teachers Union, Police Welfare Association must have one member on that management committee that is responsible for the management of the NIS. None of the organizations that I've mentioned have had any say, even though we represent the majority of workers in the country. The combination of these three organizations represents the majority of workers in the country who are represented. But none of us have any say in what goes on with the NIS.
Boucher said there is also the need for some independence with the NIS Investment Committee, which he said was a recommendation put forward by the actuary and which the unions fully endorsed. He said they also agreed that the contribution rate be increased with a recommendation of 15%, noting nothing more at this time, with the increase split evenly between employee and employers, so that the increase will be more manageable on their pockets. The PSU president also made it clear that they are not in any agreement with any proposal for the retirement age to increase to 67.
Currently, the chairman of the investment committee is also the chairman of the NIS board. And the members of the investment committee are members of the NIS board. So it is the investment committee is basically answering to itself. Now this was picked up by the actuary and for obvious reasons, the investment committee needs some independence. And the recommendation is that the composition should change. The chairman must not be the same chairman of the board. You should have a different chairman for the investment committee, and have members of the investment committee who have the requisite financial experience and the experience in investment. That was stressed also by the actuary. We understand that we cannot sit by and do not agree that the problem with the NIS as it stands now must not be corrected. We agree that it should be fixed. And so we agree that the contribution rate should be increased to 15% on a minimum. And interestingly, this only speaks to a short-term fix, because what is required to fix it is beyond 15% over a long-term period. But currently, workers cannot afford, in our own deliberations and our own investigations, workers cannot afford anything beyond this. And in fact, this was one of the recommendations of the actuary at a bare minimum of how to fix it in the short term. So we agree that the contribution rate should be increased to 15%, which is an additional 5% on average. For public servants, it's 5%, and for the private sector, it's somewhere around 4-point-something% to get up to 15% or 6%.
Which reported 85% of persons solely relying on the NIS pension. Boucher said they have also recommended the removal of the punitive measure so that once a person reaches his or her retirement age, they should receive their pension without any cost attached, noting that the NIS is to benefit pensioners.
In our minds, unless you have people who are getting their pensions as soon as they retire, this punitive measure is hurtful to workers. You have made a contribution, you have reached your retirement age, you should be able to access your pension without any punishment. Okay? You should. It is not fair for you to be punished just for accessing what you have contributed to. And of course, there are persons who have not made any contributions and are reaping the benefits of the contributions of many others. Of course, we haven't touched on those, but we have touched on those in the past. But it is only fair for our pensioners to get what is due to them without any punishment. But Andrew would have alluded to the pensionable age being increased to the recommendation by the government and the actuary to increase to 67. In fact, I have seen it in some regional international documents that your life expectancy is now around about 69 years. So we are basically saying we are not in any agreement for the retirement age to be increased to 67. We are not in any agreement. Okay, there's really no evidence to point that people are living to 72 and 75 and that sort of stuff in the majority. There's no evidence that we have seen that that is the case. And so we cannot support that retirement age going up to 67.
And this country's Minister of Tourism, Civil Aviation, Sustainable Development and Culture, Carlos James, is expected to deliver a keynote address to international sales executives at the annual Sandals Global Sales Meeting to be held in Ocho Rios, Jamaica, tomorrow, Friday, January 5th, 2024. The Sandals Global Sales Meeting is designed to bring together all international branches of the Sandals sales team, including North America, the United Kingdom, and Europe, in an effort to ramp up bookings to the multi-island destination among global sales executives. Minister James is expected to push for more support to the island's tourism product offering. Sandals Resorts International, which is the newest all-inclusive resort in SVG, is set to welcome its first guests on March 27, 2024. The 50-plus acre resort will offer 301 rooms featuring two-story overwater villas, meandering rivers, and other Sandals firsts. Minister James is expected to return home on Sunday. In this new year, 2024, all officers serving with the Royal St. Vincent and Grenadines Police Force are expected to be retrained. This is according to the head of the Public Relations Office, Superintendent of Police Junior Simmons, who at a news conference yesterday said this is one of their plans to gain back the trust of all members of the public.
The relationship between the police and the public is very critical when it comes to crime and security in any country. The police relies heavily on the cooperation of the public because on many occasions when a crime is committed, we are present. Be that as it may, it is vitally important that there is always a cordial relationship between both parties. Respect is on both sides. As a police force, as an organization, we cannot force the public to respect us. We have to earn the public respect, and vice versa. The public also has to respect the police. So what we intend to do in 2024 and beyond in seeking to improve that relationship is to retrain our police officers. As the Commissioner mentioned, there would always be officers among us who do not really adhere to the rules and regulations of the organization. And when they err, then we have to take action against them, retrain them, or take disciplinary action and so forth.
And head of the RSVG Police Force, Enville Williams, said an expert from the UK will assist in training officers in crime fighting and solving crime.
In 2024, in order to equip our officers to deal with the offense of murder and the sorts of murders that are happening, we are partnering with an experienced homicide detective from the UK who is currently in the region to bring the necessary training and knowledge base to our investigators to equip them to deal with the complex offenses that we start seeing.
Commissioner Williams said the government is also doing its part to ensure the security of citizens.
The issue of citizen security continues to be one of highest importance. I know in the budget, the whole budget exercise that is going on now, that government have appropriated finances to address the issue of crime, be it for transportation or for forensics or for upgrade and repairs of police stations. And if you pay attention to the exercise coming up, citizen security is high on the agenda, and government have given the green light or appropriated finances to address the security of our.
And officers of the RSG police force have confirmed that a video which was widely circulated on social media last week showing the gang rape of a young female, raising concern among members of the public, was not an incident that occurred here in SVG.
A video that has been circulating where a young teen was seen being raped by some young men. Now, we launch an investigation into that video recording to ascertain whether or not that offense took place on our soil, whether or not it originated here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Our investigation has revealed we have not been able to confirm that that took place here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In fact, I know that several Caribbean territories launch investigation to ascertain whether or not it occurred on their shores as well. I believe that with some certainty an arrest was made on a foreign soil in respect to that video. So it is not a Vincentian video, it is not an offense that was committed on our soil, but in fact it was elsewhere, and the authorities there would have dealt with that.
And the traffic department of the Royal St. Vincent and Grenadines Police Force has recorded a 5% increase in road accidents in 2023 compared to 2022. This is according to head of the traffic department, Assistant Superintendent of Police Parnell Brown.
Now in 2023, we have a total of 845 motor vehicle accidents being reported to our stations throughout St. Vincent and the Grenadines. This is in comparison to 781. So we have seen an increase, at least a 5% increase in the amount of accidents that occur on our roads in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. This is not good at all in terms of our motorists. We have to exercise more care and caution while using our roads. In Kingstown, as in that the traffic department, there were 456 reported accidents in 2022. And in 2023, we are seeing 545, also an increase.
ASP Brown noted that some of the accidents recorded were due to negligence.
We have seen where persons are using devices, not paying attention to the roads, hence they are running into people out of motor vehicles, the back, they are running off the roads, and they are, this practice must stop. We have also seen where in 2022 we had 6 road fatalities in comparison to 4 in 2023. So we have seen a decrease in the amount of road fatalities for 2023. I must say thanks to those persons who will have taken the opportunity to drive carefully on our roads and to ensure that the road of St. Vincent and the Grenadines are safe for all road users.
And among the plans for the traffic department this year is to erect more signs on the roads across St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
I want to assure the general public that for 2024, we at the traffic department will continue to make our roads safe for all citizens and visitors alike. We intend to continue our radio and television program to sensitize persons as to how to make themselves safer while using our roads. We also are in the process of erecting more signs on our roads. We cannot allow the motorists to assume where a sign should be or what sign should be in place. We have to do it ourselves to ensure that our roads are safer. We also have our Road Safety Week in the first half of this year that we expect to sensitize the general public as to how to make themselves safer. So we at the traffic department, we are endeavored to continue to ensure that the roads of St. Vincent and the Grenadines are safer for all road users.
ASP Brown said members of the traffic department will also be working closely with the Department of Crimes and Operations in not only making the roads safer, but to ensure illegal firearms are not being transported across the country.
On one aspect of crime, which relates to traffic, now we have seen the evidence here of firearms being handed in by members of the public. Sometime during 2024, I believe that some persons will be inconvenient because these firearms, they do not travel on foot only. They are being transported on our roads by motor vehicles. So we at the traffic department, in collaboration with the officers in charge crime, the ACP in charge crime, CID, and the other units, we will be collaborating to ensure that these firearms, once they are being transported on our roads, we have a good opportunity of taking them off the street, in that we will seize them, and where persons are to be arrested, they will be arrested. So once again, traffic does not only deal with vehicles alone. We are also in the process of preventing crimes from happening on our roads.